Hi there, I'm Nechama Skolnick-Moskowitz. I'm Director of Onward Hebrew, and this relatively short video is for teachers who are working on teaching decoding with children, but doing it in a way that's sound to print as compared to print to sound. If you're working with an Onward Hebrew congregation, you may know that we talk about building the sounds of Hebrew by having kids do tefillah on a regular basis, by learning Hebrew through movement, having Jewish life vocabulary. That all builds the sounds. And the idea is that we introduce print after children have this connection to the sounds of Hebrew. On this YouTube thing, at the bottom, you'll find a link to a document, which when you click on it, it'll actually first say, make a copy. And the answer is yes, you want to make a copy. So click that. And you'll get a document that looks like this. I developed it so that you don't have to take a billion notes, but you can fill in as I go along. Feel free to pause the video as you'd like. But what I'm going to do is help you understand how better to work sound to print when you're actually working with the decoding process. There are 4 key ways to do that, and those are the big headings down this page. The first is that you want to cue the prayer or blessing when you start. If today you're working on Yotzer or a certain paragraph of it, whatever piece of it, you want to start your lesson by having the children, if you sing it in your sanctuary or you expect them to sing it, sing that piece with them so they can hear it and hear the words. And then, or you can have them read it. I'm sorry, not have them read it. You're reading it or reciting it. And then once you've done that, then you can move on to the rest of your lesson as you're working with the print. But, our children know how to read a word like engineer because they know that word. If they didn't know it in advance and they're going like whatever, eventually a kid with English is going to go, oh, that's engineer. I know what that is. But in Hebrew, it's a little harder. Word I'm going to come back to later is b'mishmerotehem. If you're struggling to decode it, it's really hard. But if you have learned it, if you've sung it, if you hear it in advance, then you can go that must be b'mishmerotehem. And again, you're using the sounds to work with the print. So that's what we want. So you cue up the beginning of a lesson, whatever it is that you're working on michamocha, sing michamocha before you start. It's also good to do that at the very end. When you're done with the lesson, sing it, recite it, whatever the tradition is in your synagogue or program. You can also cue things via sound. So there's a couple of ways to do this. One is having them hear something and then find it. So you can ask them to turn to a page in their Siddur, or you give them a page that's printed with the prayer on it or whatever you're working with. Give them this is the find the word one, give them a word and have them look for it on the page, find it, and then you or team assistants or whoever who's walking around can see if they're pointing to the right piece on the page. You can also do that if you have something posted in the front of the room. If you need a poster of something in the room, you can check on jeccmarketplace.com. There's a link to it, I believe, on this page. And you can find prayers that are blown up relatively big that you can use in your classroom. The poster. If you cannot find it, feel free to contact the Teacher Center and someone will help you. There is a charge because it's a printed something that we're sending to you. You can do a get in order activity with children where you divide out to them pieces of prayers or blessings. You can read to them what's on the card in front of them. If you're doing this yourself and you have the ability to print something, you want to try and enlarge it to 150 or 200 point font, because then children can see it if it's placed in the front of the room. But you read a thing to them, and then if they have that line or those few words, then they stand up and they get in order. So it's about putting things in order as a group, or you can have them lay out smaller cards. You read a prayer in order and they find the pieces and you put it together. On the Onward Hebrew Facebook group, there is a picture of a teacher doing this with children. They have their own cards that they're working with. I was there when they were recording it. It's not easy. The teacher really had to work with them to help them. Kids do this if they know they've learned Hebrew decoding, they've learned the letters, they've learned the sounds, and now they're putting this together. You don't do this if children have not yet used decoding. If you want to see an example of this in action, on your sheet, we have a link to a Hebrew Through Movement video, about a minute and a half. It's all in Hebrew, but I think you'll get what it is. And you'll hear the number of times that a teacher repeats phrases. So again, we want them to hear the phrases. We want them to know the phrases so that eventually they can, when they're reciting, do them. So pay attention to that one. And the second link that's on your page, which are the JEC's Shema and Amidah posters, that's what I had just talked about, where you can get printed posters of key blessings of the Shema and the Amidah, and it's all the blessings that are involved there. If there's something that you want that is not in that particular collection, you can talk to the Teacher Center and they can help you. Another thing that you might use is JITAP. Now they've rebranded into something else, but you can still find jitap.net. It's a really interesting app that you can create things for your kids. I created 2 of them. One is on Avot V'Imahot and one is on Kedusha, where the blessing is there on the page. Kids hear a line where it says something like, click on the phrase that says Elohei Abraham, Elohei Yitzchak, and they tap on that piece and then they hear it repeated again, and then they hear the next thing they need to tap. So they're constantly hearing, they're finding the thing on the page and they're tapping. Another resource on that particular site is from Ray Antonoff. I suspect that some of you know her. She's done some amazing work with Hebrew prayers and blessings. And she has what she calls a tefillah tap in here, where you can see a word and tap under it and hear it, or you can tap and hear the whole line read to you. It's a busy page. If you've got kids who don't do well with a busy page, it might not be for them, but she has most all of the prayers and blessings in a service. So you're going to find more there than what you have under my name. You can also use games. I already talked about, you hear and then you find it on the page. You can do that in a micro way. You give them a piece of a word like Hagath, as in Hagafen, and they find that particular piece or a whole word, Hagafen, or a whole phrase, Borei Pri Hagafen. They hear it. The idea is, again, they're constantly hearing it. And because it's not in a service where like everybody's mumbling whatever they're mumbling, they are hearing you so clearly say it. It should help correct some of the issues we have that I keep hearing, that kids who hear in tefillah and then don't quite pronounce it right, if you're working on that, that's helpful. You can also have them repeat things. You hear that B'mishmarot Tehem, one of my favorite words, is not pronounced right. You could do that a number of times in a number of different ways. Have them stand on their chairs and shout it out. Have them sit on the floor and whisper it, whatever. You want to have them hear it and you want to have them say it. 2 more gamey type games. One is called Memory, which I think you know. It's where you have those cards that you lay out on the table. Used to be that when I played with it, when I was doing print to sound, I would have kids turn over cards, see if they matched, but I'd have them read or decode the phrases that they turned over, which gets us back to print to sound rather than sound to print. So now when I play, I have them turn it over and I will say, oh, you found Oseh Shalom, or you found Bimromav, and they look at it and repeat it with me. After doing that 1 or 2 times, then they, when they turn it over, have to read it themselves. But I've given them the sounds and then they're moving to the print. Another very fun game is called Zuzu. And of course I didn't grab something. I'm going to get up and grab it. This. Zuzu is if anyone know the game Upset the Fruit Basket? Not going to tell you how to play that. I'm not even going to tell you how to play Zuzu, but it's played in a circle and kids have words in front of them and they hear, if they have the word when it's called, they run somewhere else. It's a little more complicated than that, but it is a lot of fun. You'll find it in this booklet. It's like 16 pages long, and it has a lot of different sound to print ideas for you. Some of the things I'm covering for you today, others are not, I'm not telling you that. You have to read it. This is available on the Onward Hebrew website. You click on resources, you click on sound to print, and it's one of the first icons. It looks like this. And then you just click it and you can print it. It doesn't have to be in color. Gosh, it looks kind of nice in color. Okay, so Zuzu is another game. Zuzu means like move, everybody moves. So let's talk about another way to work sound to print, and that is to cue from the print. Dr. Lifsa Schachter, who sits on my shoulders all the time, she was my mentor in this Hebrew work, says that we really need to help children learn to discriminate the letters because like they're used to at this point skimming, reading, they're reading English and they're not even decoding. They can look at a word and they know what it is. And here with Hebrew, they're at a different stage. And the challenge with Hebrew, unlike English, is that so many of the letters look alike. So think about the tav, which can kind of look like a hey or a chet. Oh, wait, if you turn it on its side, it could be a bet or a kaf. You know, it just kind of keeps going. In English, an M and a K, there's no chance you're going to mix that up, although you might mix up B, D, P, and Q. But in Hebrew, it just kind of abounds. So Lifsa felt it was really important to help children learn to discriminate what's happening on the page, to slow down. And one of the ways to do that is to have them divide words into segments. Now, segments in some ways is a euphemism for syllables, but because the rules are different for Hebrew syllables than English syllables, we've chosen to talk about segments. So in English, if we want to know how many syllables a word has, we generally clap. Engineer, it has 3 claps, 3 syllables. That is not how we do it in Hebrew. We have 3 very specific rules for how you decide how to divide words into syllables, or I'm not going to use that word anymore, how you divide words into segments. So the first rule is any segment has to have a regular vowel sign, a kamatz, a patach, a cholam, regular vowel sign. That's rule number 1. Rule number 2 is a shva is not a vowel sign. It was put there originally to indicate there's no vowel sign. Don't even bother looking for it. So if there's a shva that does not count as a vowel sign, it doesn't count for our segmenting. And the rule related to that is a chataf. These under here are all, sorry, I'm doing this backwards for you, are all a chataf. They have the shva next to a vowel sign. That also doesn't count as a rule, as a vowel. So in order to find your segments, you have to find a full vowel sign. So here's one of my favorite words. I've already given it to you a few times. Okay, the mishmarotehem. If we were to follow English syllable rules, we would clap. The mishmarotehem, that's 6 claps. We would have said it has 6 syllables, but that's not true in Hebrew. We have to look for how many vowel signs there are. So I want you to look at this a minute, and I want you to think about how many vowel signs, count the full vowel signs that you can find here. remember, a shava is not a vowel sign. And while you won't find it here, a chata, sorry, is not a vowel sign. I can do this, really, I can. Okay, so how many vowel signs can you find? I hope you said 4. I hope you can see. There are 4 vowel signs: the chirik, the cholam, the tzere, and the segol. And based on that, then, if we are to divide this into segments and make sure that each segment has 1 vowel sign, then it looks like this. And here's the very cool thing about what happens when you divide words into segments. If I were to read this, I would read this Bamish Maro Te Hem. Bamish Maro Te Hem, which gets me a different sound, different cadence than if I tried the English way, Bamish Maro Te Hem, which is not the way you pronounce it. You do pronounce it Bamish Maro Te Hem, 4 kinds of segments. So if we help children learn to look to divide words into segments, then we can help them discriminate. They're spending more time looking at the word. They're spending more time seeing what the letters and vowel signs are, and that will help them in the end when they are decoding. At the very bottom of your page, you will find the page that I told you to get. It says Flash Mob Learning Materials. In that piece, there is a lesson on how to divide words into segments. At that time, we were calling it syllables, so in your head, translate it to segments. You will also find under this part here, right there, it tells you where to find on resource sheet E how to teach this. So we have a lesson prepared for you that can help you do that. So that's like a key thing that I'm hoping that you'll work on. The 4th strategy that I want to offer you is to help kids connect sound to print. I'm going to say again that it's not cheating. Like I said this before, it's not cheating to use what's in your head when you're working on the page. Too often we offer materials that are what I would call gotcha materials. Quite often what publishers give us to have kids truly work on decoding are words completely out of order from what we say and what we do with them. So we don't have to do that. Kids have the sounds of the prayers and blessings in their heads. And if they have, as the example is at the bottom of the page, Oseh Shalom Bim. Oh, wait, is that an O in the middle? Is that above? Is like, what do I do with that? But if it's Oseh Shalom Bimro Mav, that's using what they know and attaching it to their page. And you can help them cue into what they know and make them not feel like they have to dump everything out in order to be successful prayers. I was about to say decoders. We want them to decode, but in the end, it's about being part of the service and participating and getting things correct. And really, if all you know how to do is decode, you haven't gotten the sounds in your head so that you can sing any of the blessings or recite any of the blessings, then you cannot stay at synagogue speed. It's just impossible. You really have to get it into your head and your heart. And then when you're working, adults, you'll see them, those people who are comfortable with Hebrew prayer, they don't look at the page. Okay, you're supposed to look at the page, but it, again, you have to have it in your head, and you use what you know about decoding to stay up on the page. And sometimes you slow down and you go, oh, I was saying that wrong. I can do this correctly now. So that's it. The main thing, again, that I want to make sure you understand is that you want to be giving them the sounds rather than making them struggle and sound it out. It's not fair to them. It's very stressful, and it doesn't get us necessarily to where we want to go. It's about redefining success in a way and offering strategies to help kids learn sound to print. If you would like, if you're teaching Shema and its blessings or the Amidah, and you want some examples of lessons that can help you do that, go to JPrayer, and this link at the very bottom of the page will take you to JPrayer in general. And go to JPrayer and then click on any of the pieces under Shema or under Amidah, and check out the teaching resources, because the teaching tefillah pieces give you lessons that help you teach segments sound to print. There's meaning making parts of it, and then there's also what we call the flash mob, because in this particular program that we developed it for, teens were trained in working sound to print. They had a little toolkit with them. They'd flash into a class for 10 or 15 minutes, work one-on-one or one-on-two with students, and then they'd flash out again and go to their next class. So they had the tools to be able to do this, and now you have tools to be able to do this. So I wish you well. If you have questions, feel free to post them on the Onboard Hebrew Facebook group. I'm hoping that we can keep stirring conversation, and enjoy your teaching. And thank you so much for helping build confident and competent kids in attaching themselves to prayers by learning sound to print.